Welcome to this Royal Television Society Thames Valley event. And here to introduce the session is the Centre's Chair, Tony Orme.
Mobile journalism had already created a stir, if not a revolution, in the TV journalist community. Add to that COVID-19 and the challenges of social distancing, and the whole way of working is constantly changing. The rapidly evolving landscape means that people are continually working on what the way forward might be and seeking answers to the new challenges as they arise. No one is more qualified to address this subject than Mark Settle, one of the leading trainers at the BBC Academy, who has a particular interest in the development and the practice of mobile journalism. Before joining the BBC Academy, Mark has a strong pedigree in BBC journalism, having been at various times a reporter, presenter, producer and editor across the BBC. He's edited Radio 4's The World at One, presented Yesterday in Parliament, produced election night programmes for BBC Local Radio and reported for BBC Look East in Norwich. So, over to you, Mark.
Right, hello, and I need to press this button here, which is sharing my screen, and hopefully through the magic of technology, you'll be able to see my phone, which worked in rehearsals, and of course now I've got the beach ball of doom, and it's working now, so there we go. So there are more slides of me. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, although I'm here live with you now, I can't possibly cover the whole range of what I'm looking to do today, a combination of how you can use your phone effectively, as well as some of the challenges of working in the current coronavirus environment. So if you go online to the BBC Academy website, I'll give you a few links later on to resources elsewhere. There'll be lots of videos of me, but the good news, not only videos of me, because let's be honest, one of me is enough. And if you're interested in things like TikTok, I'm not your man. I can't do TikTok. It's far too young for me. But if you want sort of proper filming for journalism or for production, that's much more your bag. So I've been showing journalists at the BBC how to use their phones, either in an emergency environment, something happens, you have your phone, what can you do with it? Or if you plan ahead and you take the device with you, how you can get better content. Because if you've got a phone and you're only using it to make phone calls and send text messages, then you're pretty much, it's like driving a Ferrari in first gear. Why go to all that trouble of having something so good with you and not doing that much with it? But what I found recently was that as soon as we had the lockdown and everyone working at home, all the people who previously had not wanted to know much how to use their phones suddenly came to me and said, look, I need to know how to do this. I've put it off for months, for years, but now is the moment I need to do it. And so I've been really quite busy in the last few months showing people how to use their phones effectively, because yes, we'd love to deploy broadcast cameras across the BBC to every journalist, but clearly that isn't possible. But the device that you have with you is going to give you a very good job in most scenarios, although there are some things you can do to raise the quality threshold. Obviously, if the story is amazing, then we will run with footage if it's not absolutely perfect. But BBC staff, and maybe you guys as well, have a slightly higher threshold where you want the quality to look good, because it's really quite easy just to press record. It's quite easy to press record whether you're on Android or iOS. So I want to find out from you guys with a very quick poll just how many of you are on iOS and how many of you are on Android. So hopefully you should see this on the screen. I'll give it about a minute because it'll be interesting to see whether your results mirror that of the general population. Congratulations to someone who is not iOS or Android. That is very impressive. I wasn't expecting that to happen, but there we go. We've got 75% of you have voted. Some of you still thinking. Got 2 people who aren't using iOS or Android. Just nearly everyone's voted. That's very quick and very productive of everyone, because I don't have enough time, as I was saying earlier. So I'll just give another 15 seconds over the very last few people. So we have nearly everybody, and I'll share the results now of this poll. And this pretty much is the inverse of the real population. Out there in the real world, it's predominantly Android. It's about 2/3 Android, 1/3 iOS. But certainly in the media environment, in television and radio, it's much more iOS. Certainly the BBC is using iPhones as their device of choice to go with MacBooks for the editing. So it's interesting that you are reflecting much more the BBC, but you're very much not reflecting the whole UK environment. There is a second poll specifically for you guys on Android. So iOS guys, you can sort of take a back seat. But for those of you on Android, could you quickly answer this question as well? So which Android device are you using? And this is going to feed in to a degree the way that I can do the next session of what I'm going to be showing you, because Android is much more fragmented. So there's a lot of uniformity on iOS that there isn't on Android. So when I say things work on iOS, it's almost guaranteed it will work on all of your iPhones. But on Android, it's so much more split between manufacturers, between versions of Android, between what the manufacturers have let Android do on their device. So here we've got most of the Android people have voted now. And okay, we've got a good split. That always happens. Samsung, Huawei, Motorola, OnePlus, Xiaomi. No one's got other. That's good. Oh no, someone's got other. I won't find out what that is. But this is what I want to sort of just flag up initially, that for those of you who have got an Android device, I'm not saying switch off and go home. I just can't show you an Android device on screen at the same time as an iPhone. I am not ambidextrous enough. And even if I could show two devices at the same time, I might not show your particular Android. So I do apologize if you're on Android, but I can give you a really good resource. There's a guy called Smart Filming on Twitter, all one word, Smart Filming. He's German, but don't let that put you off. He's a really good guy. His pinned tweet is all about Android and all about Android apps. So although I will try to point up Android apps as I go, what I will be showing is going to be iOS. But to be fair, that is for the majority of people taking part today. As I was saying, it's very easy to press record and anyone can do that. But equally, there are things you need to do to get yourself out of the bad habits that can lead to bad footage. And I'm going to start with some of the very basics that you need to do, because unless you've got some of these underneath, whatever you're doing with your device, whether it's video or photos or even for audio to a degree, then whatever you're doing, wherever it's going, you're not going to get very good content. So the first one is making sure you have lots of space. Now, if you've got a 256 gig phone, then you're probably going to be okay. You may have filled it up, but you're probably going to be okay. I would aim for a buffer of about 10 gigabytes. Once you get down to single figures of gigabytes of space, your phone's going to say, I'm not sure where I can put this. And it sort of tries to shove it into a corner and it might struggle. So try to give yourself as much space as possible. You can never have enough space. Equally, you can never have enough battery. Video filming with a phone is one of the most battery draining things you can do. So without good charge, you're not going to be able to film as much as you'd like to. So take a battery pack with you or take your charger so you can plug in. ABC, always be charging, because without battery, you can't do anything at all. Then now this may only matter if you're sending something quickly, but you need good connectivity. Because again, with a video file being very large, it's going to take a long time to send if your connectivity is not that good. Now, this last one, can you all turn your phones over and have a look at the lens on the back of your phone? Have you ever cleaned your lens on your phone? Camera crews that I work with at the BBC, with their broadcast cameras, they are scrupulous. They are religiously fanatic about keeping the lens of their cameras clean. But whoever cleans the lens of a smartphone? And unless you do that, you're going to end up with footage that looks like this to begin with. It doesn't look very good, but it doesn't take very long to make that footage look a lot better. So this is at the BBC headquarters. I'm cleaning the lens, and I end up with that. It just looks so much better. It's the kind of thing that doesn't take long to do, but makes a massive difference to the quality of the video or the photos that you're taking. Also, make sure your phone is in airplane mode, because a broadcast camera can't receive a phone call while you're filming, but your phone can. It's ultimately a phone. And if you get a phone call while you're filming something, that plane that's coming in to land, you can't say to the pilot, could you go back and land again for me? You've lost the moment. So put your phone in airplane mode, and then you can breathe out about actually getting the shot. And then things become so much easier. So there are a lot of preparatory things. So airplane mode, also do not disturb, and also the high white column. That's the brightness of your screen. Normally, I would say have the brightness low so it saves battery, because brightening your screen uses a lot of battery. But if your screen is very dark, you're not going to have a good idea of what it is that you're filming. So make sure the brightness of your screen is very high, and that's going to help you. Now, the other big thing is whether you've got good equipment with you. I just skipped over a slide, so I'm going to go back and tap there and play. There we go. So even just the headphones can do a very clever trick. I don't know what you might have, what budget you might have. And pretty much what you've got is going to be okay. It'll get you some footage. But you can go to the other end of the spectrum and you can take a whole kit bag with you with extra equipment. Obviously, the more equipment you have, the more you can do. But the three things you're looking to improve are stability, light, and sound. Those are the three areas where a smartphone can really struggle. Now, what you buy and how much you spend is up to you. You can spend £300 on a Sennheiser microphone or £3 on Amazon budget microphone. Will your audience hear the difference? I don't know. Is your pride affected by the quality threshold? But for each of those items, you can spend not much money or a lot of money. I bought this rig recently on Amazon. Light, microphone, cradle, tripod, £35. It's not bad. It's going to improve the quality of the phone much more than just the phone on its own. Is it the best kit? No, it's not. Is it good? Yes, it is. So I would certainly recommend investing in some kit. What you buy really depends on what your budget is, what your expectations are, and also to a degree what you're looking to film, because clearly there are certain things that can do different things. And you can end up with a suitcase full of gear that can cover every eventuality. But broadly speaking, your phone is going to do a pretty good job. Now, I can't see many of you on screen right now, but the question I'm going to put to you is whether you're going to film landscape or portrait. Now, in the days when I first started doing this kind of training about 5 or 6 years ago, it was very much only landscape. But to coin a phrase, the landscape has changed, so I'm no longer dogmatic about only filming landscape. If your footage is only destined for a portrait location or destination, such as Snapchat, such as Instagram TV, then, you know, knock yourselves out, record it portrait. But if you record it landscape, it's much easier to reversion and then make it portrait or make it square than if you filmed it portrait in the first place. I think you have more options when you film it landscape. I would reckon that a lot of you with a background in television, portrait is anathema to you. But nevertheless, it's what the kids are doing. Even so, I think if you film landscape, you're going to get a much better result you can play around with later on than if you film portrait, which is very much going to narrow down your options. There are workarounds, but I think none of them is as satisfactory as making landscape video into portrait or square. Then you've got to think about stability. I was saying a moment ago how you could use a little tripod like this. You could get a full-size tripod. You can get a gimbal to keep things steady. But you are probably the best tripod around. If there's something to lean against, then lean on that. If something to lean on, then lean on that. Your phone should all have some kind of stabilization inside them. And just holding the phone like this will do a pretty good job. Just doing that is going to do a better job. An even better job would be holding your phone in one hand and then clamping your wrist like that and bringing it in. And that will give you much more stability when you film a shot than if you just hold it like that. The downside for journalists, perhaps, is you blend in if you're holding it like this, because that's what everyone's doing. In fact, they're all doing like this. But if you hold it like this, you're going to blend in. But if you hold it like that, it's pretty much saying to anyone else, you're doing some filming. And on occasions, that could be problematic, because there will be locations where you either ought to ask for permission or you can just go ahead and do it. But if then someone with a security hat and a stick comes towards you, it might be a problem. If you just walk in and film like that, you can just probably get away with it. I'm not condoning that. I'm merely saying it's something to be thinking about. So stability is really important. We're now going to spend maybe 10 minutes looking at the very practicals of what you can do with your device. And that's my little trigger to remind me to go to my camera. So this is where you can all join in as well. So go to the camera on your phone. We're going to look at the default camera that comes on the iPhone. There are much better camera apps on Android and iOS, and hopefully later on I'll tell you about what those are. But if you just go to the default camera on your phone, the phone itself will do a pretty good job at deciding the exposure and also the focus. But here's one of the simple tricks that shows you know what you're doing compared to normal people, so to speak, is that you can take control. Just by tapping on the screen, you're telling the phone, take the exposure from that point. Or you tap at the bottom of the screen and you're telling the phone to take the exposure from that point. You decide the exposure. If I hold my hand here, I can tap on my fingers and my fingers go into focus. The background is out of focus. If I tap away, my fingers go out of focus. The background is in focus. So you can decide what is in focus as well, rather than letting the phone do it for you. Once you've decided what's in focus, you press and hold, and that locks the focus. So now when I drop my hand down, the background is out of focus, but I bring it back, my hand remains in focus. It's kept the focus at that point. If you don't lock the focus, particularly on older iPhones and on some Androids, the phone will pulsate as it says, I don't know what the focus is. And that doesn't look good. So lock the focus to get a good shot. Equally, on many phones, you'll get the zoom option just by spreading your fingers like that. But the more you zoom, the worse the picture quality gets, and you also end up with a much shakier image. So if you've got a 2x lens, on a lot of phones these days, even 3x lens, press that, and that's an optical zoom rather than digital. And so that's using a lens, therefore the quality is better. The best way to get better quality footage is zooming with your feet. If you can get nearer to the thing you want to film, assuming it's safe to do so, then get closer rather than using the digital zoom. Now, if you're filming yourself, one of the cardinal sins that you'll see all the time is people looking at themselves on screen. Because when they look at themselves on screen, they are not connecting with the audience. They're looking off camera. If you're filming yourself, you need to look at the lens there. And when you're looking at the lens, you're talking to your audience and you'll get a much better connection. Clearly, with a front-facing lens, I can see what's behind me. I could take a bit of a flyer and use the back-facing lens. It's a little bit harder. I can maybe tap on the screen, but I can't be certain. And if you get it slightly wrong, it won't look quite right. With a bit of practice, you might get the hang of it. Obviously, the back lens is better. On almost every single phone, the back lens is better than the front, but it does mean you can't see what you're doing. So it's a bit of a decision. Do you want the back lens and quality or the front lens where you can actually see what you're doing to make sure you look at the lens rather than the screen itself? Most smartphones obviously will also have an option for slow motion, so you can record the video and then slow an element of it down, or time lapse, so you can record something and then over time it will show a truncated amount of footage. So if I go into time lapse here, obviously in the era before social distancing, this was in Canary Wharf, I filmed for about 5 minutes and you get that effect. Now, Apple do it very well, but they decide for you how long the time lapse is condensed. There are much better third-party apps where you can decide how often it takes the photos, when you put them together, how fast it runs. Apple is great at doing everything for you, but if you want the control, then I would look at third-party apps. So let's do a little bit of videoing and a little bit of editing. So with your normal smartphone camera, just start recording and you'll see the timer counting up. For those of you with an iPhone, you might even have a white circle in the bottom right-hand corner. It might be on Android as well. That takes a photo at the same time. Let's all just count to 5. When I say go, count to 5, and then we're going to do some editing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now you can stop recording. Your video is automatically saved. On Android, I'm not sure where, but it'll be saved. When you access your video, you can then tap the edit button, and with these little handles, you can edit down your video to isolate
some editing.
A smaller version, a smaller cut of that video. But what you need to be careful about is, particularly on the iPhone, it may be the case on Android as well, that if you then save your video, one of the options is simply save video, and that overwrites. And so you lose everything else. And it's a real disaster. If you've done something longer and you make a shorter clip, that you lose everything but the bit that you want to save. So one simple piece of advice is any editing that you do on a phone, make sure you always save a video as a new clip, because then you're not going to be overwriting the original. So I'm saving the video as a new clip. And in the iPhone, you then have further options about your video. If you've recorded it in the wrong aspect ratio, you can turn it round, or you can change the frame size of the video. You can even put very tight adjustments to your video in terms of the color balance and the saturation and black point and all the things like that, or even add a filter. So it's got a lot of fun things, but equally you ought to be thinking about what it is you're filming rather than how are you changing it from the original look. So it's quite simple to do some very simple videoing. As I say, anyone can press record. But going beyond that, there are things you need to do to get better quality. And one of the things that people often struggle with is audio. They can press the record button, the video is fine. And in many circumstances, the audio will be okay if it's just of a general location. If it's just a scene, it will catch really good audio. But if it's of an individual, where they are will have a huge bearing of how the audio is going to sound. I'm now going to hand over to my glamorous assistant and play you a short piece of video to demonstrate one of the problems, but also one of the solutions. Getting good audio is vital to any video you record, and the inbuilt microphone on most smartphones will be good enough for ambient sound. But for an interview like this, the distance between me and the microphone is not going to get good audio. So an option is to get much closer. The closer you get, the better the audio will be. But when you're as tight as this, the sound may be good, but is the picture really something you want to look at? Where you record will have a huge bearing on the audio too. Outdoors it can be very noisy, too noisy just for the internal microphone. So if you can, go somewhere quieter. Or ask your guests to speak up a bit. Or ask everyone nearby to be a bit quieter. When you film just with a phone, and that's what you will always have, when you film just with a phone, the microphone, when you're using the back lens, is a little hole between the lens and the light on the iPhone. On the Android, I don't know. You'll need to record some video and then just tap around to find out which microphone it's using. But when you just use the phone, it's the little hole on the back there. So how do you get better audio? Because there's no point having pictures which people then can't hear what someone's saying. I'm going to go to another slide. At the moment, what I want to show here is how American networks, when people were filming from home, didn't realize about sound to begin with. So this is one of the late night hosts called Seth Meyers. Have a listen to how bad the audio was to begin with and how much it improved later on.
He was more concerned about vaping than coronavirus. He is a 16-year-old high school burnout trapped in a 70-year-old retiree's body.
The president should not have enough time to tweet that much, even on a normal day, let alone during a crisis.
I think you can appreciate that they realized that the audio just from the phone is not good. The location he was filming in made the audio bad as well. So how do you get better audio? Back to me. Another option could be to use the microphone on the headphone that came supplied with your smartphone. Once you've plugged that in, the audio is now recorded through this microphone, which should mean I am now much more audible. The only downside is this cable is not that long, meaning the shot could be restricted by the length of that cable. Now, I wouldn't say you should use the headphones microphone, but you don't have to spend money to get them. You probably still have them unless you've lost them. Most journalists have these with them all the time, such that when a story happens, they can use these to get better audio of their guests. So if you've got this, that will give you better audio. If you want to connect another microphone, you need to check what kind of connection it's got. The one on the right, which only has 2 lines on it, is incorrect. It can plug in to the headphone socket on the bottom of your phone, or it can plug in to the adapter that comes with the iPhone, and this will plug into there, and that will plug into the lightning port on an iPhone, but the audio will not be recorded. If you have a microphone with 3 lines, which is called TRRS, that will work with a smartphone. So you need to make sure that any microphone you've got has a TRRS ending, or you can buy microphones now that are lightning only or USB-C only for Android. Those are much more expensive than the old style TRRS microphone. So again, this microphone here from this little kit is on TRS out, but going into the iPhone, it's TRRS. So it's exactly the right one. I think for 35, 40 quid, that was quite a good bargain. So previously, you'd get close to your guest, or you'd ask them to hold the microphone. But because of social distancing, things are a little bit different now. And this film was made by a BBC colleague showing what he was doing differently because of coronavirus and social distancing. It starts out in a fairly standard way, showing the app he's filming with and also the kit he's using in addition to the phone. Being a proper cameraman of some experience, Mike knows that the phone on its own isn't going to be good enough to get the results he's after. But it soon becomes apparent that he's doing things rather differently. Social distancing means he's having to use more robust kit, the kind of gear that only a few have access to, like wireless microphones. And that got my mind worrying. Would decent Mojo become the preserve of only a select few? he's also filming in a different and more challenging way. You wouldn't normally set up a shot without your subject present, but that now seems to be a necessity in this new age that we're in. And this shot indicated something very radical. Does mobile journalism now need two people working on a shoot? Because previously, one of the preserves of mobile journalism was it was an individual. But now, with all this extra equipment that you might have to carry and a long boom pole that someone else will have to hold for you, is that changing how mobile journalism is running? Equally, the cost factor of all these extra items might prevent many people from doing the kind of mojo that's previously done. This is the wireless microphone of choice these days. I'm obviously not publicising it. The BBC would not let me do that, but it's very good. But it's about £180. That clearly is, for some people, quite an outlay compared to a small lapel microphone that might only be £10, £15 or so. So because of coronavirus and the constraints of social distancing, it does mean that things are happening slightly differently. Nevertheless, it does still end up with a very good piece from my colleague. When he knows what he's doing, I'm going to play you this and have a short glass of water.
This is the BBC Home Service.
Calling All Workers was a popular theme tune during wartime Britain. Today's battle against coronavirus has drawn parallels with that time as communities come together in the current fight against an invisible enemy.
We're making scrubs here, so for example, that's a top, or going to be a top, so it does take somebody who understands pattern construction to do that sort of thing. But people are making face masks, people are making headbands, simple stretchy headbands with buttons, so it protects the ears rather than hooking the elastic of masks over ears.
10-year-old Daisy Smith has been so inspired by the community stitchers, she's been baking and selling cookies to raise money to help buy cloth.
I've got you cookies.
Thank you, Daisy. Bye.
I've raised just over £150.
Wow, and where's that money going to? What's it doing?
It's buying the fabrics so the sewers can make nurses' clothes.
Some pre-cut scrubs are dispatched from Barnsley College, ready for volunteers to stitch together. Sarah White, a textile design teacher, is helping coordinate an army of around 100 sewers.
I got an order in quite quickly from primary care GPs, and they needed some scrubs making. I realised that I just didn't have the capacity for it. I just thought, you know, they wanted 24 sets of scrubs, and I'm quick, I can sew very quickly, but 24 in the time that they needed them, because basically they needed them very, very quick.
Cloth is also being donated by nearby retailers. The material needs to be washable at 60 degrees. The college is also producing face visors for local hospitals and care homes, as well as acting as a distribution centre.
It's all in size order, so we've got garments set to size, so we know that we can pick quite quickly. It is a production line, it works, everything's set into order, so when people are dropping off in the foyer, we've got that already set to size, so there's very little contact with the fabrics, so we're trying to, you know, be as efficient as we can.
Support back home can make a real difference to the front line. It's clear people are pulling together purely for the love of scrubs. Phil Bodmer, BBC Look North, Barnsley.
And I bet when you were watching that, you just thought, that's just a really nice piece of news. You didn't really remember that it was filmed on a phone. But it was filmed on a phone. It was edited on a phone as well, with a very clever app called LumaFusion. And interestingly, the conclusions from the cameraman was the results indicate the level of quality that can produce working this way with lightweight portable kit. Now, I wasn't certain about that. The compact nature of the kit means it's easier to operate. Well, it's certainly smaller than broadcast kit, but it's certainly bigger than kit has been previously for mobile journalism. So here, a big tripod with a phone on there and the microphone, slightly out of the remit of everybody that mobile journalism used to make possible. One other thing to mention in particular is when you are filming people, to think about the rule of thirds grid. So when you interview someone, you want their eyes ideally on the top third line where those lines meet. So the interviewees in that piece, they're either on the left of the frame looking right or the right of the frame looking left. It was just classic TV framing. Or if you're having someone talk to the camera, get them to look at the lens rather than you. Because if they're looking at you, they're not looking at the lens, and then the eye line doesn't look quite right. So whether it's across the screen or whether it's straight to the camera, make sure that their eyes go on the top third line. And that really is a golden rule about what makes an interviewee look good. Another thing that makes an interviewee look good is decent light. Unless you're filming someone for Crime Watch, you don't want the light right behind them, or you'll end up with a silhouette. The best thing you need to do is to have the light behind you when you're filming. Natural light is great, but clearly that's not always possible. Your phone will have a light on it, but that's going to drain your battery even faster. The most draining thing you do with a phone is to film with it, but to film with a light on is going to drain it even faster. And of course, how much you spend will determine what kind of options you've got. This is a pretty good light. It's not brilliant, if you pardon the pun, but it isn't bad. It's about £25. You can go even cheaper, something like that. I'm not sure how professional it looks, but it gives you extra light. Or something like this. This is an extraordinarily good light, but it's another £120. Or you use professional lighting in conjunction with your smartphone. Kit that works for broadcasting also works with a smartphone, but there are certain things which are particular to a smartphone, which if you want to use your phone successfully, you need to know about. Putting your phone in airplane mode, cleaning the lens, making sure that the battery is topped up, making sure that you've got lots of space. Because if you're using a broadcast camera, when you run short of battery, you just get a brand new battery, put it in 100%, carry on filming. If your memory card on a camera starts getting full, you get an empty memory card and carry on filming again. Much harder to do with a smartphone. You've got to be really across what you're doing. And then you've also got to get a range of different shots. If all you get is a single shot of a person doing something, it's going to be very boring. If all you've got is the interview with them, it's going to be very difficult to edit. So getting more shots gives you flexibility to edit the story and to tell it in a more interesting way. So ideally, what you're looking for is a close-up of the hand to show detail, close-up of the face to show the person, a wide shot to show where they are, over the shoulder, their point of view, something different or alternative from on high or on low. Don't forget the phone is very small. Use its size as an advantage. Put it in small places. You can hold it up high for a long time, which you couldn't do with a broadcast camera. And then you have your interview after that as well. Now, normally in my training sessions, I would ask people how many people on the day of the course have bought themselves a coffee from Starbucks. I'm sure there are many of you who'd love to do that right now, but it's not possible because of the well-known reasons. However, I'm sure many of you, most days in the real world, would normally buy yourself a coffee a day. But I imagine that not many of you would buy yourself an app. But the coffee will be gone in a couple of hours. The app will do a lot more good. But you don't mind spending £2.50 on a coffee, but lots of you go, oh, I'm not going to spend £2.49 on an app, but it's going to last a lot longer and do a lot more. Now, you could end up with an awful lot of apps. The more apps you have, the more flexibility you've got. So here are a list of very good apps that can do a range of things depending on what you want to do. So the ones with a red dot by them work on Android as well as iOS. So whether it's video filming, whether it's video editing, whether it's filing, there's an app there called PNG, which you can't get because it's a BBC app, or whether it's audio recording or editing, or photos or photo editing, or text on video. There are a tremendous range of apps that could do an amazing job of your phone. It can get a bit expensive though, if you really want to do some very clever things with your device, because some of these apps can be very expensive. So for almost all of you Android people, but not everyone, but certainly for all of you iOS users, the best video filming app is this one here called Filmic Pro. So if you've worked previously with broadcast cameras, it is virtually the same. You can adjust the color balance, you can film in log, you can adjust the ISO and shutter speed, you can change the frame rate, you can do zebra stripes to see whether something is in properly exposed or properly in focus. You can do a pull focus, you can record square and vertically, and it's about £25. Now, compared to some apps, that's very cheap. Compared to a broadcast camera, compared to some apps, that's very expensive. Compared to a broadcast camera, that's ridiculously cheap. So Filmic Pro is very good. If you don't want to go to the £30 range, then perhaps the next level down is one here called Movie Pro, which is giving me feedback on my headphones. So I probably can't show you this too much, although I can get very, very confused. Although this app does have one thing which even Filmic Pro can't do, whereby you can record, and while you're recording, you can swap between the front and the back camera. So you can show what you're seeing and then swap back to yourself to do a piece to camera, which even Filmic Pro can't do. So that is called Movie Pro, and I can no longer hear myself on my headphones, which is a blessing, I can tell you. So yes, you can do very simple editing in the iPhone camera, or you can do more advanced editing with iMovie. And iMovie is free, and it's very good. However, it's very prescriptive. Apple have made it work very well, but they determine for you where the text goes. They determine for you what colors the text. The color is only white on a gray background. There are very, very few options within iMovie. It also won't do anything square. It won't do anything portrait. It's a bit old-fashioned, I would say. I know it's weird to say an iPhone app is old-fashioned, but I think iMovie does not cut the mustard these days. The best of the bunch, and this one is iOS only, is called LumaFusion. It's made by a company called Luma Touch, but it's called LumaFusion. And for any of you who have used things like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere, this app is pretty similar. It gives you 6 tracks of video, 6 tracks of audio. You can do keyframes. You can add text anywhere on the screen in any font, any color. It is very, very configurable. It's a little bit intimidating because it's got so many options. It is also about £30. So when you combine Filmic Pro and LumaFusion, you may end up spending a bit more money than you might have expected, but it's still a lot cheaper than Final Cut Pro and a broadcast camera. For those of you who don't want to spend too much money, then the app I would recommend is called VN. And VN is quite new. It's on both Android and iOS. I don't know how they make an app as good as this free, but it is. It's very, very impressive. But there's always that question in the back of my mind of what are they getting out of you, the fact they are giving the app free? And so far, I've yet to find out. But it's very, very good. It works almost identically on iOS and Android, and it's free. So if you want to, it's not as powerful as LumaFusion, but it's certainly very, very good. Now, one of the things which is very hard to do these days is transcription. It can be very time consuming. It can be very laborious. It can even be very expensive, which is why I want to show you an app called Viru. So Viru is free. So again, the same caveat applies. But with Viru, if I scoot down here and find a video, which I thought I had, but I've managed to not have it. Let's go with this guy here, and then press next, and then press the upload button. What it's doing is it's uploading the video into its own cloud server. So you've got to be slightly careful about what it's doing with that footage, because anything controversial or confidential, you may not be able to be 100% certain that nothing will happen with that video. If it's a here today, gone tomorrow piece of video, then you might be okay with it. Equally, what it can do for you may make you feel, well, look, I'm going to take that risk because it's making my life so much easier. I've nearly managed to stall long enough for it to finish. And there we go. It's just about nearly done. So let's see how accurate it has been. Come on, get to 100%, otherwise it'll never finish. Talk amongst yourselves. It's always the last 1% that always slows you down. What this will do is it'll automatically add a transcription to the video. And
so tomorrow, Mark Settle from the BBC Mojo Trainer, is going to be running through something that he's done a number of years at this event, which is running through the apps that are on his smartphone. And it is a veritable Formula One race of apps.
Now, that isn't bad. It's pretty accurate. You saw a few mistakes. If there is a mistake, you just tap and you can change it, and change it from race of apps to race of applications. And so you can change that. You can also change the look and the feel of the text. So you can have it simply like that, or a background like that, or like that, or like this, or like that. It will do it very quickly for you. You can change the style of that text. So you name a font, and it will do it for you automatically. You can change what the color of that font looks like, or the color of the background looks like. So anything that fits your branding of your organization, this app will do it for you. And you can change the position of
And
exactly
it is
of the position of where it goes on the screen to fit how you want it to be. Now, you can add subtitles in LumaFusion. You can add subtitles in iMovie laboriously by listening to it, by adding on the subtitles one by one. This app will do it for you. So you need to think about this thing called app bashing, which is basically not one app to rule them all, but this app to do this, that app to do that, this app to do that, to combine to end up with your finished product. You could keep things simple. iMovie will give you text on the screen. You have to type it in yourself, but it's very boring. You could not get a purple background on text on iMovie. You could do it in LumaFusion, but it'll take a bit of time. Or you make it in iMovie, and then you've got it automatically done in this app here called Viru. Again, it's free, so you've got to be slightly wary of that. Equally, recording yourself might be quite a challenge if you struggle to remember what you want to say. So I'm going to show you an app. It's one of the number on the market that can do this. It's called Teleprompter. And if I loaded up the wrong one. So let's, my scripts, and go to my piece to camera. There we go. And let's start recording here like this. And start. Oh, save. Press that wrong button. Let's start again here. There we go. It's not always easy for even the best reporter to remember every word of their piece to camera. And on some occasions, it is crucial to get everything right. You wouldn't want to get the facts wrong in a legal case or the numbers wrong in a company's financial results. But when you're out working on location at a story, you won't often have access to AutoCue. While this is not as good as the real thing, it's another app that might be worth having on your iPhone just in case you ever need it. With the text right next to the front camera, it can seem to your viewers as if you're talking straight to the camera and not reading a script. But watch out, on many smartphones, the front lens is often worse than the back one, so the shot might look a little different from all the others you record with your phone. I might need to slow the speed down of that, but then you end up with something like this. It's not always easy for even the best reporter to remember every word of their piece to camera. And on some occasions, save it back to your camera. Oh, you don't want to look at my nose. Believe me, no one wants to look up at my nose. Also, with this app, you can change the speed that the text moves at, the size that the text moves at, and also you can add captions onto the video itself. Now, that's another payment. It's quite expensive, but it's certainly a feature you might want to think about getting as well. So I'm not saying that these are the only apps you want to get. There are many others. And part of my job is to look around to find apps that are going to be really good and productive for mobile journalists. So there's a video editing folder. So here, KineMaster is probably the best editing app for Android. There's another one called Power Director, which is also very good, but I think KineMaster is definitely the best of the bunch. It is the most powerful. In terms of video effects, there are a lot of apps that can make your video look very, very different. If you want it to look like a video from the 1980s, then this app called, why does that come up right now, does make your app look like it was recorded in 1991. And you can even give a bit of tape stutter that you used to have on a camcorder or a VHS. Lots of apps that make your video look very different. Many apps are putting text onto your video, or making an introduction to your video, or animated text on your video, or apps that can have moving text onto the screen, or apps that can make animations or stop motion or graphs. If you don't have a graphic design team, you can put together a little pie chart like this, or if you don't like it as a pie chart, you can make it into a bar graph. This app is free. It's called Chartistic. It's very impressive, the fact that it's free. There's a really clever app called Pick, Play, Post, where you're going to have several frames all at the same time. So I probably can't show that because I'm running short of time in terms of what I want to show you. So, there are many, many apps that you can do for video, many apps for photos, many apps for audio recording. Possibly one of the most exciting apps for audio recording is this one here called Voice Record 7. Because Voice Record 7, again, could do something which used to be either very expensive or very, very time-consuming. What I'm doing now is recording a short piece of audio into the app, or using another app, I can bring the audio into this app, and then I can do the thing I'm about to show you with this app. So either you record in this app, or you bring the audio from another app into this app. So let's now just stop recording, and then press the button that does all the magic, which is here, and then do this. And this used to be the kind of thing which was just ridiculously complicated for journalists to get done, or time consuming, or expensive. But getting a transcription of an audio recording or a transcription of a video recording is now entirely possible with a free app. Now, this is called Voice Record Pro. It is on Android as well as iOS. But here's the kicker. The iOS version only is the one that has the transcription. You don't have the transcription function within the Android version. So there are lots of apps which you can use, but when it comes down to it, it really is, what is the story you're telling? What is the message you want to get across to your audience? There's any number of accessories that will make it look better and sound better, but if you're telling a bad story, it's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's not going to make it that much more attractive, even if you make it look very nice. It might not hurt, but ultimately you want to have a good story as your main target. So just in terms of sort of a resource that might be useful, there's a whole community of people like me who basically do things with their phones. And it's called Mojo Fest. It's about 6,000 people, and they're all sharing ideas of what they're doing and how they're doing it, or apps that they're using, or techniques. And they're asking questions and other people are helping. If you want to look for the group on Facebook, you can apply to become a member. It's free, obviously. And you've only got 3 questions to answer. I'm one of the administrators. If you say you've been today, I will definitely let you in. And then you can just, dig around. And when people say, what's the best microphone I should use? There's probably the resource in there where someone said, actually, this is the microphone I want to use. So this is a really good resource for smartphone filming. And these are the tips I would normally give people. The top 15 tips: clean your lens, do not disturb, or airplane mode, keeping the phone light behind you, and landscape, and all ... all the others like that. And so it literally can fit onto a credit card sized piece of paper. I've run over by a minute, for which I can only apologize, but those are the main things I wanted to get across to you. Clearly, there is so much more, because it is basically filming, it is basically audio recording, it is basically photography, but it is the device you have with you all the time. You can keep it simple and just use the iPhone camera and the apps that come free with your phone, or you can go to the nth degree and have hundreds of apps on your phone, which each can do something, or I would recommend finding a few and getting good at those. Rather than dozens, which is my job to be across, get a few, learn how they work, learn what they can do for you, and learn every aspect of them. I'm now going to breathe while I wait for some questions, or not, as the case may be. I don't know.
Mark, the thought of you breathing is unbelievable. What you've covered in that 45 minutes is remarkable. And just to remind folks that this has been recorded, so it will go up on the website in due course, and you'll be able to stop it and pause it and catch breath from what was covered in that last 45 minutes. We've got a few questions here, which we'll whiz through, because it'd be good to get some answers for people. Mark, the first one is, can you explain how to use, this comes from Simon Waldman, can you explain how to use the mic in wireless headphones? Can that be used easily?
Is that the Simon Waldman?
Yes, it is.
Oh, right. Well, hello, Simon. So wireless microphones. Well, it depends which wireless microphone you've got. I have got them in my pocket, which is these, which are obviously very expensive. These are the Apple AirPods Pro, which are very lovely. These are very good for listening to audio. I have found them a bit duff for listening, for using for the audio, for the microphone, to put the audio onto certain apps. And one of the things you need to be careful of is not every app accepts wireless microphones. So Filmic Pro will. It has a setting where it can actually see the wireless microphone and pair to it. But bizarrely, the iPhone's own camera does not take the audio from their own AirPods, which for reasons I just do not understand. The audio part of the iPhone will. So the voice memo app will take the audio from these, but the camera will not. So if you are going to invest in a pair of wireless headphones, then you need to make sure that the app you're going to pair it with does accept wireless audio. The other big thing is to make sure that there's not too much latency, because what you don't want is to have you talking, but the pictures being ever so slightly behind the audio. So with a slight delay, which doesn't look or sound, clearly it could be corrected in post, but that's much more time consuming than if you get it right in the first place. So something like these, which are the Wireless Go from Rode, these have a couple of wires, then a little unit which you plug into the iPhone, and then a very, very small transmitter, which you can either just use the transmitter with a microphone, or you can plug in a microphone into the transmitter, and that will get into the iPhone. So I think there's a bit of a difference between wireless microphones and Bluetooth microphones. Bluetooth microphones are even worse than wireless microphones.
So yes, just going on, there's another one here on sound. If I can just go back here. Yes, Mark, Will Hollis is asking what the name of the wireless kit is that you mentioned, that you said that was very good.
Yeah, so this one here called the Rode Wireless Go. Given that I seem to have mentioned it a few times, I'll just give a quick look at it, mainly because it's extraordinarily small. So what you have is a receiver, which is the microphone. This is an inbuilt microphone, but also a jack to put in, a socket to put in a lapel microphone. And then this is the receiver, which, you know, just a tiny. And if you have a little device like, whoa, where have we gone? Here, it's designed to fit into a cold shoe like that. And so it could be a really small form factor to have a receiver for the microphone and a transmitter. So this is the one made by Rode. There's another very good one on the market made by a company called Saramonic, which is S-A-R-A Monic, and it's called the Blink 500 for reasons that aren't clear to me. So the Saramonic Blink 500, that's about £200, but it gives you 2 transmitters. So you've got 2 microphones, whereas this only has 1. Also, you could repurpose a normal wireless microphone to work with an iPhone. Again, the very key thing is to make sure that what you plug into your phone ultimately has got 3 lines, the 3 rings are not only 2. So if you have a normal wireless microphone, you can repurpose it to work with an iPhone. You don't have to buy something specifically for an iPhone. Another good brand to look at, it's a bit sort of cheaper. It's called Boya, so B-O-Y-A. They make a good range of wireless microphones. Again, they're not quite as good, but they're a lot cheaper. Again, it's that balance between, do you want very good quality? Sennheiser will cost you an absolute fortune. There's a company called Shure, S-H-U-R-E, who make very good wireless microphones as well. Or you go for a bargain basement off Amazon, you don't know about the build quality, they probably won't respond to emails if your wireless microphone breaks, but you've only spent, I don't know, 60 quid in the first place.
Going on to Laura McGaughan, who's asked a question, how do you overcome the storage on your phone to download so many apps? Is it potentially worth recording and then editing on your laptop?
Right, okay, so one device that I don't have with me right now, but I could quickly look it up on another phone and show you on the screen, is called, they're basically storage apps, storage devices that can plug directly into your device. So it's called the iExpand. So it looks like, come on, there we go. It looks like that. It's a little device that plugs into the bottom of your phone. These can be up to like 512 gigabytes. Obviously, you pay for the privilege, or a smaller size, even like 128 gigabytes is now only, I think last time I checked, about £60. So then you can record on your phone, transfer it to the stick. Record on the phone, transfer it to the stick. Then you delete off the phone. There's a bit of a leap of faith that that the footage is on the stick, but I've never had it go wrong. But you don't have to have a very large capacity phone. The reason I have so many apps on my phone is I don't have any music. I don't keep things on my phone that I shouldn't do. I also don't use my phone as a storage for my videos and photos. I upload them to the cloud, onto iCloud or onto Google Photos, and then only keep the really necessary ones on my device. Because yes, otherwise, this iPhone is only 64 gigabytes, which isn't enough. So yeah, you can never have enough storage, but there are workarounds to give you more.
Question from April Ryan. She's asking, do you happen to know any reliable transcription apps for Android phones? What she normally does is add subtitles one by one in Prem Pro.
Yes, I'm going to say no, because as I say, unfortunately, my little head is swimming far too much with iOS, let alone having it filled with Android apps. I'm going to refer you to my friend Smart Filming on Twitter. If you look at his pinned tweet, his pinned tweet is all about Android apps, and one of those may be transcription. The best there are a couple of websites you could use. One is called Rev, R-E-V. Another one is called Otter, as in the aquatic mammal. and both of those will do transcriptions. You upload the content to their sites, and then they will send it back to you. Now, Otter, which I know in more detail, recently changed its offer. So Otter changed its offer, whereby it used to let you have 3 uploads, sorry, as many uploads as you wanted a month, up to 600 minutes. It now only lets you do 3 if they are imports. If you record in the app, you can still have 600 minutes. If you import into the app, it's only 3 different imports every month. So you've got to be slightly judicious. So unfortunately, I don't have the answer to the question about Android, but I know a man who does, possibly.
Philip Barnes is asking, can you quickly explain what the BBC's PNG app does?
Yes, better than explaining, I can, wow, quickly show you. So if I go back to sharing my screen, so the BBC PNG app is designed to get content in from our journalists straight onto location. So why is that? There we are. So what it does is it lets you record at the correct frame rate. I can record a short piece of video like this. I can stop recording, and then I can top and tail it very quickly like that and make it shorter. I can then save it, and then I can send it, and this will get the content from my phone straight into our production system. So I'll give it a title like that, I'll give a description like that, and save and send, and that is now being sent from my phone straight into the BBC production systems. I don't have to send it via WhatsApp, which compresses the quality. It's the right frame rate. It lets me hear the audio while I'm recording, which for journalists is very good. We have removed the option to overwrite, which means you cannot accidentally delete the original and only end up with what you've saved as the piece of audio or video that you've edited. It is designed for our journalists, and therefore we're not making it available to people outside the BBC. So I've just had the confirmation come through that it's now been uploaded, it's in the system, and anyone across the BBC who wants a vertical piece of video of my front room can now access it. All across the world, it's available to them immediately. If I sent it via WhatsApp, it will go to just one individual or maybe a group of people, and then they have to put it into the system, into Jupiter it's known as, whereas this does it automatically. So it isn't the best app for filming. The functionality of the camera is very, very simple. The functionality of the microphone is very, very simple. But there are much better apps you can then record and bring into PNG and then use this as a way of sending the content. So you either use it all within the app, or you use other apps, bring into PNG, and then send back to base. That's the very quickest I've ever shown PNG.
So I think we've got time for one final question, and it's the sort of question that the RTS builds a whole day's conference on, so no pressure there.
Right.
And it comes from your Mojo Fest Spanish friend, Urbano Garcia. Do you think that the coronavirus crisis has brought down the resistance that we have found in many colleagues during these years of developing mobile journalism? I.e., is it the thing that's broken the dam down?
Yes and no, if that's not too much hedging my bets. What it's doing is it is making, I'm going to stop the sharing. There we go. What it's doing is more people are aware of the possibilities, but I think, as I was saying earlier, it's made the barrier to entry a little bit higher because of all the extra equipment that is needed. I think what it has done is it's made a lot of members of the public realize that they can film with their phones. There's a great video on the BBC website about the very basics that you need to film to get good footage. It's made a lot of editors realize that the phone is very good. I mean, Match of the Day, if you've seen the new version of Match of the Day, it's using an iPhone XR, so not even the very latest, and that is, good enough. Clearly, it's never going to be as good as a broadcast camera. A broadcast camera is always going to be able to do things that a smartphone can't do, but you cannot get away from the fact that everyone these days has a phone and so ought to know how to use it properly. I think to a degree, the coronavirus epidemic has changed the attitude towards mobile journalism. But because of the ways that it needs to be worked, I think there are still a few limitations, which means it's not going to be something that everyone is going to be able to use.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for fitting into just an hour what others may take 2 hours to do. So thank you. Tony, to you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Mark. That was quite incredible. I didn't know my iPhone was capable of so much. So I'm going to be using it in a whole new light now. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank our committee members for helping make tonight possible. So Tim, Simon and Cara. And please look out for our next events. We'll be publicising those through email over the coming weeks. We've got about 7 or 8 events coming up over the next few months. So please look out for those, and then we'll let you know what's going ahead. So a big virtual round of applause for Mark, and thank you everybody, and good evening.